This is the office of the Federal Republic of West Papua, which actually doesn't exist in reality because the West Papuans have been annexed by the Indonesian government for the last 60 years. And over the last 60 years, we've seen over 500,000 West Papuans die in their independence struggle. This is an office which was set up by the West Papua Rent Collective, which I'm convener of. It was set up by my late wife, Ellen Jose, who was Melanesian from Torres Strait, and myself. And we first met the West Papuan activists here in Melbourne and felt that they deserved an office from which to run their campaign for an independent West Papua. Now we're about to enter the office. The office is now, this is the 5th year it's been here. It's a green building. It's a 7-star rated building. It is totally self-sufficient. They don't have to pay electricity bills. It's all solar. They collect water. It's one of the most green buildings that's in Melbourne currently. And we felt that this is the type of place a newly independent nation should be. Now this office provides the base from which the international independence struggle is conducted. It's an exceptionally important office for West Papuan activists, and the whole idea of the Rent Collective is very simple. Now, most West Papuans here in Australia are refugees or asylum seekers, permanent residents. If they were involved in renting out an office, they would have large legal issues. So what happens now is that the West Papuan Rent Collective pays the rent for the office. The office has been here 4.5 years. That means that West Papuan independence activists can actually get on with the task of fighting for independence without the worry of rent. It's very easy to join the Rent Collective, and we've got a number of people in the Rent Collective, over 50 currently. We need about 70 to keep up with the monthly rental. It's not cheap here, but it is central, and it's very important for West Papuan dignitaries when they come here, and dignitaries from other nations who come here. This is like their embassy, de facto embassy, this office. Now, to join the Rent Collective is very simple. It costs $1 a day, a quarter of a cappuccino a day. And you can do it anonymously. And if you wish to join the Rent Collective, you can ring me on 0439 395 489. Or write to me at Post Office Box 20, Parkville 3052, or contact me through my Facebook page, Toscano for the Public. So it's very easy to join the Rent Collective. You can do it anonymously. We have 3 gatherings a year downstairs in the boardroom of the building, which they are able to use, the West Papuan activists of Rent Collective members, and we just had a gathering a few days ago. Now, currently we're about 15 members short for the Rent Collective. And for a very small price, as I said, $1 a day, you can put the money in any Commonwealth bank anywhere in Australia. You can actually support this independence movement. Now remember, West Papua is 75 kilometres from Australia. At the end of last year, the Indonesian Parliament, before it rose, declared war against the West Papuan independence movement. There are some areas of West Papua which are still, 60 years later, under the control of West Papuan independent fighters. And over the last 8 weeks, there's been an escalation in the warfare, and over 25,000 refugees have streamed out of the forests to live in the margins of some of the towns and the capital city in West Papua. There's been a number of deaths, and with the election coming up next weekend on the 16th and 17th of April, I mean, it's important that people get involved in supporting this movement. I'll give you an example of what it's like to be a West Papuan activist. 4 or 5 years ago, an activist in Darwin was, she died in a motor bicyclist. She was hit by a car, and a senator from the DLP at that stage wanted to offer a condolence motion in the Senate. He was a senator. He had the word West Papua in the condolence motion. Both the Labor Party and the Liberal National Party refused to allow the condolence motions to be read out unless the word West Papua was removed. Now, as far as the Indonesian government is concerned, they have no interest in
the Indonesian government is concerned, they want to destroy what's left of the independence movement. As far as the Australian government is concerned, they kowtow constantly to the Indonesian government and have never actually supported in any way the West Papuan call for independence. So these activists have now taken things into their own hands, and they've both got a political struggle and an armed struggle. There's the armed struggle in West Papua, and there's a political struggle outside the nation. The political struggle is about having West Papua put on the United Nations decolonisation list. And to do that, they need 2/3 of the General Assembly to approve that. And they're hoping that by October this year, that the question of West Papuan independence will be put back on the decolonisation list. Now, we're talking about a country 75 kilometres from the Australian mainland, where people are massacred, starved, displaced, where multinational corporations are making fortunes at Freeport and other sites in West Papua. West Papua is extremely rich in resources. Freeport, there's a mountain of gold which has been mined for the last 50 years by United States corporations. It has many natural resources. Logging is becoming an issue. The fishing. If the West Papuans had control over their own lands, it would be an exceptionally rich nation, and you wouldn't see the poverty and malnutrition that you see today in the country. It's basically a fiefdom of the Indonesian military, and they basically do what they like. So by supporting the West Papuan Rent Collective, you support their push for independence. It's an exceptionally important thing. And there's not much you can do in life. You can go out and march, you can get involved in a protest, you can do a little bit of a radio broadcast, you can do a YouTube presentation. But what we do is we pay the rent. We don't tell the West Papuans how to conduct their independence movement. That is their job. They use the office space to conduct their independence struggle. Right, this is the flag I was talking about that you can actually be shot for raising in Indonesia. It is a 5-pointed star, and it's fascinating. The West Papuan activists usually come and join us at the Eureka celebration on the 3rd of December at Ballarat. And when you're there in the early hours of the morning, like I'm talking about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, you'll notice the morning star and the Southern Cross in the sky at the same time. And it's quite interesting that we've got many West Papuans who make the journey to Ballarat on the 3rd of December because they understand what Ballarat was all about. It was about personal freedom. The West Papua independence movement is not a religious movement. It's a secular movement. It's a movement for independence. Many West Papuans are Christians, some are Muslims, and some are animists following their own traditional religions. It is a broad-based independent movement which has exceptionally positive stand regarding women, a positive stand regarding distribution of wealth, a positive stand regarding using the local wealth for local consumption. Now, in order to get the UN decolonisation petition going and forcing the Australian government to support the motion for the UN General Assembly to register West Papua on the UN decolonisation list, I encourage you to go to www.decolonised with a Z, that's right, the American with a Z, decolonised, DECOLONIZE, westpapua.com. And the West Papuan Women's Office, which is located here at 838 Collins Street in Docklands, they have instigated this campaign and they are responsible for this campaign. They would like to be able to hand deliver the petition to Parliament in June after the election, and they're trying to raise as many signatures as possible. It's a small thing you can do. It's not much signing a petition. I'm going to take you through the office because we're going to see some extraordinary images. Now, you may have noticed the painting I was standing at when we entered the office, which is basically a take on, this is done by a local artist, Peter Woods, oil on Belgian linen.
and it's Liberty Papua Leading the People, and it's obviously a copy of the Delaroque's painting of the liberty during the French Revolution. Now across here you've got other paintings which have been done, because you've got to remember that a lot of West Papuans and Indonesians now live in the same area. They get on quite well, and this West Papuan independence struggle, it's not just about liberty for West Papuans, it's also about liberty for Indonesians who have been brought to West Papua who are now living in West Papua. You see some traditional homes up here, because a lot of people still live a traditional animist lifestyle, especially the areas which haven't been fully colonised by Indonesia despite a 60-year war. Now in the office itself we've got more paintings that have been done by same artist, Woods, and also some traditional handicrafts, as well as paint and drawings of traditional animals. This is where the West Papuan office is. It's quite interesting how important the dilly bag is in West Papuan society, because being a lot of people carry all their belongings in these bags, and one of the most poignant pictures I've ever seen, I've been around for a long time, was of this little boy about 6 or 7 whose parents have just been killed up in the jungles in West Papua by the Indonesian military, who were using chemical warfare, come out with these little dilly bags strung across his head and all his belongings. He's naked except for a little bit of a leaf where his penis is, and he's got these dilly bags hanging from his head. Now we may be able to find you a picture of that. Now obviously there's notice boards, pictures of prominent figures in the West Papua movement. In Australia, the leader of the West Papua movement is Jacob Rumbiak, who is basically the Foreign Affairs, Trade and Immigration Minister for the country. He is one of the leaders who's overseas. Jacob was in an Indonesian jail for 10 years. He'd been shot. He was a guerrilla fighter and been shot, and made his way to Australia as a refugee. Now obviously what happens in this situation is there's always a new generation that's fighting for independence. These people are culturally different, have a different language, different lifestyle, from Indonesia. And it was a tragedy that in 1961 the Menzies government agreed to the Indonesians taking over West Papua, because it was part of the Dutch East India Company, and it was actually being controlled by the Dutch for about 400 years. And the new independent Indonesia demanded that West Papua, although it's culturally different to Indonesia, be part of their society. So they've lost East Timor, they may lose West Papua the way they're going. You can just see the office here, it's just a general office. But what it does is it frees people of the responsibility, the Rent Collective frees people of the responsibility of paying the rent on this office, which is quite significant. It's a significant sum every month, and that's why we need new members of the Rent Collective. So think about it. You can do something really positive. You can upset the Australian government, you can upset the Indonesian government, and more importantly, you can get healthy. $1 a day, 2 pizzas a week, 2 takeaway cheap Chinese meals, 4 cappuccinos a week. You could lose weight and support West Papua. A win-win situation for everyone. Look at me. I used to be 250 kilos, I'm now 100 kilos, because I've been supporting the West Papua Rent Collective for the last 4.5 years. All right, next week, who knows where we'll be in the city of Melbourne, but we will be somewhere giving you up-to-date information about what's happening in this city and how important individual action is. So I'm proud to be the convener for the West Papua Rent Collective here in Melbourne. I'm proud to support the West Papua independence struggle, and that means I won't be going to Bali anytime soon.